Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again this is Michael the Comic Nerd and welcome to another episode of Mike's Indie Corner. On this episode, we're taking a look at a unique little platformer called Ink. Spelled in all caps, because I guess that makes it a little more interesting. Blah. Okay, so I'm going a little bit outside my comfort zone of usual like horror games or adventure games I usually review to review a platformer. I don't think I've done that yet on this show, so this is kind of new. This is another request I got from DINIZ a while back, and I've been kind of working my way through it. A lot of shit has happened since I got the request and since I'm reviewing it, so unfortunately I just now finally had time to finish it, and I did. Is it good? Yes, it's good. It's good. This is definitely... I wouldn't say this is a subgenre of platformers that's made for me. This is not a game I would ordinarily play. This is much more for people who like Super Meat Boy and just those insanely challenging trial and error type platformer games, which is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine genre. I have nothing against it. I do like a good challenge every once in a while. I personally don't quite have the patience for these kind of platformers, mostly because I'll admit, especially because of video games, I have a short fuse, so it doesn't take very long. Watch the Let's Play, and just watch me get increasingly agitated as I keep playing this game. I'll put a link to the Let's Play in the description if you want to check it out. The game itself it's a very basic premise. You play a little 6-bit cube, like 16-bit, I think, max, it's 16-bit, cube in what appears to be a blank level until you start making paint splatters with your avatar. You can do this by double jumping or just landing on surfaces. You basically play a paint sponge, splattering paint all over this level, and the more paint you splatter, the more the level is revealed. And that's where the trial and error comes in. Like everything, all the paint you splatter before you die stays there after you respawn. So the more you die, the more the level is revealed, and so on and so forth. And you repeat this for 75 levels, all the while dying several times just to see where the hell you're going. It's a clever concept for a platformer, and it works pretty well. Like the controls are solid throughout the game. There is a couple hiccups in the controller. I can't tell if it's deliberate or just a bug that kept coming up and it kept pissing me off, where sometimes the game would randomly decide that you've already double jumped even though you've only jumped once, and that could screw you over a lot if the gap you're trying to cover is very dependent on you being able to make a double jump. Like, for example, towards the later levels, which I'll get to those later levels because I have a few things to say about that, I would slide down a wall and then I would try to like double jump my way to the next platform, but for some reason it just goes right to the second jump. And you always know when you make a second jump, because every second jump you do makes a little paint splatter everywhere. So I'll just do that, and then I would just follow my death, because it wouldn't let me make another jump after that. And that's fine for like the first few times, but after like the 500th time you've died because of this stupid little thing, you get mad fast. Other than that, though, the controls are usually pretty solid. There is a definite amount of practice and trial and error and skill that goes into passing a good majority of these levels. And that is one thing I liked about that. It's like, it does require skill. You definitely have to practice a lot to get the timing right. You have to pay attention to the patterns. You have to pay attention to how the layout works. And you have to just keep trying different techniques until you find one that works. I liked that. I thought that, like, this is the kind of stuff that these kind of platforms do well, is they force you to practice it. You can't just breeze through it. You gotta focus, and you gotta be patient, and you have to be dedicated enough to try these different techniques. And for about, I would say, 80%, like 75-80% of the game, definitely revolves you using applicable skill to get through majority of these levels. The last 10, like 20, 25% of the game is made insanely difficult and insanely frustrating, and it really not more dependent on luck than skill, which I find frustrating, especially a game up to this point that was balancing challenge and skill so well up to this point. By the introduction of these basically towards about halfway through the game, you're introduced these like little things that shoot out like objects at you that you have to dodge. Okay, fair enough. The problem is, like, those only have a straight trajectory, you can predict where they're going, and you can dodge them. Okay, that's fine. Problem is when you get to the last 20% of the game, you run to these ones where instead of just shooting you and they go a straight trajectory, they're like homing beacons, so they start chasing you, which doesn't sound too bad in theory. It's like, okay, just gotta work around it. Problem is they throw hundreds, like what feels like hundreds, of these things at any one time, and you can't predict their movements. Now you can make the argument that this means, okay, you gotta work harder to go around them, but even like the way they're set up and the places they're put you at such an insane disadvantage that it stops being about skill and just being about just pure dumb luck. And to me, that kind of defeats the purpose of a game in this kind of challenging platforming subgenre. It defeats the entire purpose, and it makes the game just really, really, really frustrating. Because at least when I died before, I can make the argument like, okay, I didn't die because of stupid shit, although that happens sometimes. I died because I fucked up and I didn't time the jump right. Okay, that is one I can accept. But when I'm dying constantly, not because of anything I'm necessarily doing, just because at this one particular instance, one of the stupid objects decide to just go right in a way that I can't predict or really dodge all that much, then that ceases to be about skill. And that, I don't know if I'm making sense. I admit I'm kind of rambling, but my point is it does feel like it adds an unfairness curve to what was, up to this point, a fairly balanced, challenging experience. Like, up to this point, it was challenging without being frustrating. Well, I mean, it was frustrating, but it was challenging without being unfair. And the introduction of that last element that they really rely on in the last act of the game really makes it unfair and makes it incredibly frustrating. Maybe a lot of people who play these kind of games did not have the same problems I had with it. Maybe it's just me and the fact that I don't play this subgenre very much. So, take that as you will. It's something that bugged me. Other than that, I feel like one other kind of a wasted opportunity was the fact that, or maybe a feature this game could have gone without, is the game does have 3 boss battles. And it seems kind of out of place in what you're going. It does not look like a game that needs boss battles. And the boss battles, in comparison to the rest of the game, is remarkably easy. So at the same time, it's like, I feel like you could have cut this and you would have been fine. I mean, it's really colorful, it's really pretty, and it's kind of a fun way to change things up a bit. But at the same time, I was like, this also feels massively unnecessary. The only other complaint I've had about the game is the fact that sometimes I would just die for no reason, like that I can think of. That wasn't being shot by any projectiles that I saw. I would just die. Like, sometimes the game just decides that, okay, you're not supposed to survive this particular round, and you would just die. And that kind of shit was bullshit. But other than that, I think I've kind of said everything I really can say about this game. It is just a basic platformer. It's very pretty. It uses its graphics well. It uses its concept well. It definitely requires a lot of patience and relies a lot on trial and error. And if that's a game you want, then you'll like this game fine. Last 25% regardless. So I'm going to give this game a solid 8. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Aside from that last 25%, which almost knocked it down a point, but it's like, I'm being nice on this one because the game is only $5. It's a really cheap game. And if you like these kind of games, it's definitely worth your time. So I think that's all I got for this one. Next on my request list is Shovel Knights. I got requested to do that one. After that, who knows? If you have a game you would like me to play on this show, then go over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Michael the Comic Nerd and become a $5 patron. That's it. Cheaper than Netflix subscription. Submit your request to me that way, and I will get around to it when I get around to it. So, thank you all for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next episode of whatever the hell I'm making next.